Hey everybody. Okay, so we are going to add seam allowance to our pattern in TukaTech. When we took this class by hand, we learned two different methods to add seam allowance to pattern to sew it up around darts. The first method is pictured here, where we just added about 1/2 inch seam allowance around the dart legs. And we're also adding the seam allowance around the whole sloper body. And you'll notice on this sample, there's different widths of seam allowance being used. Like the armhole has a more narrow width, 1/4. Oftentimes you'll see the hem with a wider width. So we're also going to go ahead and do that in TukaTech right now. So you should open up the sloper that I gave you. And probably the easiest way to get started is with the seam tool. So this is a TukaTech thing. When I see the word seam, I kind of think, oh, you're going to sew something together. But this is their 2D program. It's not 3D. So we're not sewing things in this one. So you're just, when you see the word seam, it means add seam allowance so that you could sew it, I guess, in person later. So you'll see here, there's like a little sewing machine. We're not sewing it like 3D software. It's just adding seam allowance. So the keyboard shortcut is the letter S for this as well. But because I have no seam allowance on my pattern at all, I'm going to go ahead, go up to seam, and they have the global seam option, which allows you to add seam allowance to all the pieces on your work area or just the current one. So I'm going to do all of them. And for me, I'm going to type in 1/2 inch. A very cool thing about TukaTech is that their little number thing here, it's also a calculator. So like I could type in 1/2, the fraction. I can type in 0.5. I could even type in 1/4 plus 1/4 if I wanted. So let's see if that works. I'm going to do 1/4. So if you're just like, you don't have to do the math in your head. I think that's kind of cool. Okay, so let's see, did that actually work for a 1/2 inch seam allowance? Let's find out. Now, I want to change some of my seams to be a little bit different. So another way besides hitting the S button is you can actually right click and let's see where, quick seam, there it is, quick seam. And if I hold control, you can set a width. So I'm going to hit control, I'm going to click it. And maybe, yeah, our hem, I want 1 inch. So I'll just say 1 inch and say, okay. And then now anything else I click will also automatically be 1 inch. Okay. There's no panning in TukaTech, but you can zoom. So when you zoom, it zooms in to wherever your cursor is. So like if I wanted to pan over here on the left side, I would bring my cursor and I would zoom in and out, and it kind of pans it for you that way. So it's a little bit different than other softwares. But okay, so I'm going in. Now, also a thing to note about this pattern is that it's been unfolded, so it's symmetrical. So any changes that I make to one side of it, they'll be reflected on the other. The thing though is with Tuka is that it only allows you to make changes to 1/2 of it. So it's the half that has the green line and the name. In this case, it's the left half. I can't make changes to the right half. So watch, if I try to click to add seam allowance, it's not letting me. So that might happen to you. You might be frustrated, like, why isn't this working? It will work if you click on the left side, and then you'll see your changes that way as well. Okay, there we go. Okay, so that's how you add seam allowance. Now, the first way we did it, we just added seam allowance around our dart legs here, just like the first sample. In order to do that in TukaTech, these dart legs really, they just need to be pattern lines. They should not be registered as darts. So if they're registered as darts, then they fold the dart close and they add seam allowance a little bit different. And that's our technique sample number 2. So I'm actually just going to go ahead and show you that as well. So I'm going to go back to this video. This is where I'm demonstrating it by hand. So you can see the first one on the left, and then the second one is over here. You hit play. Okay, so it kind of has like a weird carrot shape, but when you put your dart legs together, the seam allowance goes straight across, okay? But when you unfold it, it has like a weird little carrot top shape. Okay, so that's what we're gonna do next. So in order to get that carrot top shape, these need to be recognized as actual darts, not just patterned lines. So we do have a dart tool here. It says create dart. So what I'm gonna do oops, I'm going to say cancel for right now. I just wanted to switch to that tool. There we are. Okay. Am I in the tool? I hope so. Okay. No, I'm still in the sewing tool. Let's see here. Let's see if I can get into that one. Okay. Create dart, click. Cancel. Do I get to stay in the tool? I think I'm in the tool. Okay. So I have to select the dart legs, the point of the dart legs. So you select 2 dart legs, and then the third thing you select is where you want the dart point to be. Yeah, so okay, so I'm going to click here, and then I'm going to go to the next dart leg. And then, I don't know about this. I'm going to say cancel. Let me try that one more time. Click. Oh dear. Okay, this is oh, I must be in the wrong tool again. Okay, let me try getting in that dart tool one more time. This was so easy in my other video, but let's try it again. Okay, it looks like it let me click the dart tool this time. Last time it was not letting me do that. I'm back. I'm in it. Okay, here we go. Click on dart leg number 1. Click on dart leg number 2. Now you can see I'm not pushing my mouse, any buttons on my mouse. It's just kind of following my mouse. So I'm just moving my mouse up, and I'll click on that dart point. You can name it if you want. There's different modes. I'll just leave it at drill, and we'll say, okay. And you can see how the seam allowance changed now. Okay, but it went to the global seam allowance, which I actually don't think it followed our formula. It does look like a 1/4 inch. Maybe not. Oh no, if the other one's 1 inch. Anyways. Okay, so let's change this seam allowance also to be 1 inch, like the rest of my hem. So I click that. Uh-oh, is that not working? There we go. Okay, this should just click. I'm not sure what's going on here. Maybe if I deselect it. Okay, now it's not selected. There we are. Right click, quick seam, and click the seam, click the seam. Maybe I was clicking on the seam allowance and that's why it wasn't working. Okay, I'm gonna zoom in here so it kind of scooches over. And I guess I'll do the same thing. I'll change this dart. So let's go back to that tool. The keyboard shortcut's Control D. Why don't I try that since hitting the button was giving me a bit of trouble? Hey, that worked. Yeah, Control D. If that happens to you where you click it and it doesn't work, try Control D. Okay, so I'm going to click this dart leg, the next dart leg, and then you finally have the option for the dart point. Okay. Oh dear, I'm back in the move point. That did not work. Cancel. Okay, let's try that again. What is going on? No, I went out. I don't know what happened there. Let's try it. Let me zoom in. Probably the problem is just zooming out too far. Okay. Okay, let's try this again. I'm trying too close now. Oh, brother. Okay, there we go. Click. Click. Uh-oh, I'm in the wrong tool. Huh, let's try this again. I can do this, I promise. Okay, click one dart leg. Oh, it's green. Maybe that's good. Click the other dart leg. Yay! It worked this time. There's my dart point. I can name it. I can give it a mode. I'm just going to say okay. Now I'm going to go back to my quick seam, and I'm going to click the seam allowance. So it's straight at 1 inch also. Okay, so this is what you need to do for the 2 technique samples of adding seam allowance. Do one where there's seam allowance around the cutout dart legs, second one where there's seam allowance around your darts, and take a screenshot and share both of them in the assignment.